The champagne glass shattered beside Zuri Nelo's hand before the laughter reached her. She was already on her knees in the center of the ballroom, one palm against the polished floor, the silver tray twisted beneath the other. Cold champagne soaked her black service dress. Broken crystal glittered around her thick knees, while Mira stared down at the stain spreading across her ivory engagement gown. "My dress," Mira whispered. The room reacted as if Zuri had set fire to the building. A woman covered her mouth. One older man stopped chewing with his fork raised. 2 guards left the wall. Hundreds of eyes settled on Zuri, and not one looked interested in the hand that had struck the tray from behind. Then Kang Tae-rin stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. Men like Tae-rin did not need volume when a room had already trained itself to fear their disappointment. "Clean it." Zuri looked up. Tae-rin stood beneath the gold lights in a black tailored suit, broad-shouldered and terrifyingly composed. The engagement ring meant for Mira rested inside an open velvet box behind him. His face held no anger. Anger would have been warmer. Mira gathered the wet fabric against her legs. "She came straight at me." That was a lie. The waiter who had seen Mira's cousin clip the tray knew it. Even the guard studying the ceiling with sudden professional fascination probably knew it. Nobody spoke. Tae-rin's gaze dropped to the glass. "Clean the floor. Apologize to Mira. Then leave before you embarrass anyone else." The humiliation landed so hard that Zuri felt her pulse beating inside her teeth. The man whose name had haunted her guardian's final letter was ordering her to crawl. Zuri placed the tray down and rose. The room seemed offended by the fact that she could. Her full, soft curves filled the simple uniform with quiet dignity. Champagne darkened the fabric over her rounded belly, but her shoulders stayed level. Her hands trembled once before she folded them in front of her. "I will clean what I spilled," she said. "I will not apologize for what someone else did." A murmur passed through the guests. Mira's expression tightened. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I am saying the truth did not change because your dress was expensive." Someone coughed into a napkin to hide a laugh. The sound died when Tae-rin turned his head. Mira's cheeks flushed. "Search her." The guards hesitated. "My diamond bracelet is gone. She stood beside the bridal table." Zuri's stomach dropped. The bracelet had been there 3 minutes earlier. Now the velvet cushion was empty. Tae-rin looked at her again. "Did you take it?" "No." "You understand what happens if you are lying to me." Zuri did. The Kang name was spoken in Seoul with lowered voices and locked doors. Tae-rin was called a chairman in public, and something far less polite in places where people learned not to ask questions. Still, she lifted her chin. "Do you understand what happens if you accuse the wrong woman?" For the first time, his control cracked by a fraction. Right here, while Zuri is standing in front of people who want her to shrink. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Tales Hub if stories like this are keeping you locked in, because that tells the channel to keep bringing you this level of drama. Mira gave a polished little laugh. "How brave. A thief with principles." Zuri faced her. "And an heiress with a missing bracelet. Tonight is full of surprises." The man with the raised fork finally lowered it. Kang Dae-soo rose from the family table. Tae-rin's uncle wore a burgundy suit and the patient smile of a man who preferred other people to deliver his threats. "Search her," Dae-soo said. One guard approached. Zuri stepped back. Her heel pressed against crystal, sending pain through her foot. Her fingers closed around the thin chain hidden beneath her collar. Tae-rin noticed. His eyes narrowed. "What are you wearing?" Zuri's breath caught. Dae-soo saw the fear on her face. "Take it from her." The guard reached for her wrist. Zuri pulled away. "You may search my pockets. You will not put your hands on me in front of this room." Tae-rin moved first. His hand closed around the guard's forearm, stopping him inches from Zuri. He looked only at the chain beneath her uniform. What is on it? Her guardian had made her promise never to show the ring unless Park Do-hyun stood beside her. His last message had arrived 20 minutes earlier. "Do not let them see it before I get there." The warning had come too late. The guard moved again. Zuri jerked backward and the chain snapped. An old gold ring swung against her black uniform and caught the ballroom light. A black stone sat at its center, carved with the Kang family crest. Tae-rin went completely still. Mira's face emptied. Dae-soo tightened both hands around his cane. Zuri understood then that the missing bracelet had never been the real trap. The room had been waiting for this ring. Tae-rin stepped close enough for her to smell cedar and cold night air on his jacket. "Where did you get that?" Zuri forced the words through her burning throat. "From the woman your family buried without a name." The ballroom doors slammed open. Park Do-hyun entered with rain on his coat and a sealed black file against his chest. He saw the guards, the broken chain, and the ring hanging against Zuri's uniform. "No one touches her." Dae-soo turned. "You are late." "No." Park walked toward them. "I arrived before you made the mistake permanent." Mira's voice sharpened. "What mistake?" Park stopped beside Zuri and raised the sealed file so the Kang crest faced the family table. "This engagement cannot continue." The guests stopped whispering. Tae-rin stared at the file. "Explain." Park broke the seal. "The woman wearing that uniform is not a thief, and she is not a stranger to your family." His eyes moved to Zuri. "She is the bride named in the Kang succession contract." For 3 full seconds, nobody in the ballroom seemed to remember how breathing worked. Then the older man with the fork quietly placed it on his plate, as if good table manners might protect him from whatever came next. Mira laughed first. The sound was bright, brittle, and one note too high. "That is absurd." Park removed a yellowed document from the file. A black ribbon crossed its center, fixed beneath an old wax seal. "Your opinion was not requested." The laugh vanished from Mira's mouth. Dae-soo extended one hand. "Give me the file." Park did not move. Tae-rin's gaze stayed on Zuri. The cold certainty he had worn while ordering her to clean the floor was gone. What replaced it was worse. Recognition fought disbelief behind his eyes, and Zuri could not tell which one she feared more. "Did you know?" he asked. "I knew there was a promise. That is not what I asked. And humiliation was not what I came here for, yet both of us have received surprises tonight." A few guests looked down before their faces betrayed them. Tae-rin absorbed the answer without blinking. "Did you know you were named as my bride?" Zuri touched the broken chain at her throat. "My guardian died before she explained everything. She left me the ring, a letter, and one instruction. Be inside this ballroom when Park opened that file." Mira turned toward the staff entrance. "So she arranged to work here?" "Yes," Zuri said. "Apparently the bridal table had no opening for the real bride." The woman nearest Mira suddenly found the floral centerpiece fascinating. Dae-soo struck the base of his cane once against the floor. "Enough theater. That covenant was drafted by a dying man who mistook guilt for authority." Park's expression remained calm. "It was signed by every voting member of the Kang Council. Half of them are dead. Their signatures have shown remarkable discipline." Even Tae-rin's mouth almost moved. Park placed the document on the nearest clean table, keeping one hand over it. "The covenant names Zuri Nelo as the protected bride in the Kang succession line. Until her status is formally heard and resolved, no competing engagement may be recognized by the family council." Mira's eyes flashed. "Protected bride? She is a server wearing a stolen heirloom." Zuri looked down at the champagne soaking her uniform. 5 minutes earlier, the room had treated her like dirt beneath polished shoes. Now those same people were studying her as though a crown might be hidden under the fabric. The change did not feel like respect. It felt like hunger. If you are still watching while this room turns against the only woman telling the truth, drop your location, the time you are watching, and one emoji for the emotion sitting heaviest on you right now. Tae-rin lifted the ring carefully from where it hung against Zuri's chest, touching only the broken chain. His fingers never brushed her skin, but every nerve beneath her collar woke anyway. The reaction angered her more than his closeness did. He turned the black stone toward the light. A tiny mark had been cut beneath the crest, too small for the guests to see. His face hardened. "This is authentic." Mira stared at him. "You cannot know that." "I put that mark there when I was 17. Zuri's eyes snapped to his. Tae-rin released the chain as if it had burned him. A memory moved behind his expression, quick and guarded. He knew more about the ring than he wanted the room to understand. Dae-soo noticed it too.
"Authentic objects can still be stolen," his uncle said. "Search her and end this performance."
"No one searches her." Tae-rin's voice carried across the ballroom without effort. Zuri almost laughed, but the sound would have hurt. Minutes ago, he had allowed the accusation. Now that her ring had value, he had discovered principles. She stepped away from him. "Do not defend me as though you did not help put me on trial." A muscle tightened beside his jaw. "I made a decision with the information I had. You had my word. You were a stranger. And now?" His eyes dropped to the ring, then returned to her face. "Now you are a question no one in this room is leaving until I answer." The ballroom doors closed behind Park. Metal clicked inside the locks. Guests began reaching for their phones. The screens went dark at the same time. Tae-rin's security chief gave a small nod from the wall. The signal inside the room had been cut. Fear passed through the crowd in a soft wave. Several people who had enjoyed Zuri's humiliation suddenly remembered urgent obligations elsewhere. Dae-soo's smile disappeared. "You locked your family inside a room over a contract you have not verified." "I locked a liar inside," Tae-rin replied. "I have not decided which one." The words struck Zuri harder than she expected. For one foolish second, when he authenticated the ring, she had thought he believed her. Mira heard the doubt and reached for it. "Search the staff corridor cameras," she said. "She entered the restricted preparation room before the party. I saw the alert." Park turned toward her. "How would you know which alert appeared on private security?" Mira's hand froze against her wet gown. Dae-soo answered for her. "The bride was given access." "The announced bride," Park corrected. Mira's smile returned, but desperation had sharpened its edges. "Show him the footage." One of Tae-rin's guards approached with a tablet. He held it out, screen facing Tae-rin. Zuri could not see the image, only the white light crossing Tae-rin's face. His expression changed. Not shock, not confusion. Betrayal. He looked at Zuri as if the glass between them had shattered all over again. "At 9:17, he said, "you entered the room where Mira's bracelet was secured." Zuri's skin went cold. "I never entered that room." Tae-rin turned the tablet toward her. There she was on the screen, wearing the same black uniform, opening the restricted door. The image was clear enough to destroy her, but the woman in the footage lifted her left hand. Zuri stared at it. The old ring gleamed on the wrong finger. Zuri had carried the ring on a chain since the day it became hers. Park leaned closer. Mira moved quickly. "It proves she had the ring before tonight." "No," Zuri whispered. Tae-rin enlarged the image. The false Zuri's hair was hidden beneath a service cap, her face angled away. Zuri met his eyes. "It proves someone dressed a woman to look like me." Park pointed directly to the corner of the footage. "And it proves the camera clock is lying." Park tapped the timestamp with one finger. "The ballroom clock says 9:24. Tae-rin glanced toward the enormous gold clock above the stage. Its second hand moved with insulting calm. Park continued. "Zuri was standing at the staff checkpoint at 9:17. Her entry badge was scanned there, and the camera above that desk records a separate feed." Mira folded her arms. "Badges can be handed to other people. Faces are less cooperative." The guard changed screens. A second recording appeared. Zuri stood at the staff checkpoint while an attendant inspected her bag. The time in the corner read 9:17. Both images claimed she occupied 2 rooms on opposite sides of the hotel at once. The older guest, who had abandoned his fork, leaned toward his wife. "Efficient girl." His wife pinched his sleeve without looking at him. Zuri did not smile. Her knees still stung from the glass, and Mira's accusation still sat inside her like something sharp. Tae-rin studied the 2 screens. "Which feed was exported?" "The restricted room footage," the guard answered. "The checkpoint feed is still inside the hotel system." So one was touched and one was not. Mira's confidence thinned. "That proves a technical error." Park looked at her. A technical error dressed another woman in Zuri's uniform and placed the ring on her finger? Dae-soo's cane struck the floor again. "Stop performing for the guests. Move this into the family room." Zuri turned toward the watching crowd. No one looked amused now. The people who had judged her most loudly were pretending they had always believed in due process. "No." Dae-soo's eyes settled on her. "You do not decide where this family conducts its business. You conducted my humiliation here." The sentence spread through the ballroom and found every person who had laughed. Zuri faced Tae-rin. "If the accusation disappears behind a closed door, then the lie remains in this room after I leave." He held her gaze. She expected refusal. Men with power rarely enjoyed returning dignity in the same place they had taken it. Tae-rin handed the tablet back to the guard. "Put both recordings on the ballroom screens." Mira spun toward him. "Tae-rin." He did not look at her. "Show every guest." The giant screens behind the engagement stage came alive. On one side, the false Zuri entered the restricted room. On the other, the real Zuri stood at the checkpoint under a bright service light, answering questions with tired patience. A low sound moved through the guests. Tae-rin stepped onto the stage. At 9:17, Zuri Nalo was under staff inspection. The recording used to accuse her was altered. Mira's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "You cannot say who altered it." "No," Tae-rin replied. "But I can say she did not enter that room." His eyes found Zuri across the ballroom. "And I can say I accused her without proof." The admission was not an apology. It was too clean for that, too controlled. Still, a man like Tae-rin had just placed his error on display before people who treated weakness like an invitation. Dae-soo looked as if someone had poured vinegar into his champagne. Zuri felt no victory. Public correction could not return the moment she had spent on her knees. Mira climbed the stage steps. "The bracelet is still missing." "Then perhaps it is tired of the engagement too," Zuri said. A startled laugh escaped from the floral table. The guest responsible immediately pretended to sneeze. Tae-rin looked toward the bridal display. "Search the room, not her." The guards moved with quiet speed. They checked beneath linen, behind flowers, and inside the service cabinets. One lifted the ivory arrangement from the bridal table. A diamond bracelet slid from the hollow base and struck the tabletop. The sound was painfully tiny. It shattered Mira's remaining composure. Zuri stared at the bracelet. The arrangement had stood beside Mira all evening. Anyone could have hidden it there, but only someone with access to the bridal table could have done so without attracting attention. Park's eyes moved to Mira's wet gown, then to Dae-soo's cane. Mira raised both hands. "I did not put it there." Zuri's voice stayed soft. "Now you understand how that sentence feels." Tae-rin came down from the stage. "Who chose the flowers?" Mira looked toward Dae-soo before she could stop herself. It lasted less than a second. It was enough. Dae-soo smiled at Tae-rin. "Careful. Suspicion makes poor manners look like evidence. And panic makes people look at the person they trust." Mira's chin lifted. "I looked at your uncle because he approved the event." "Of course," Zuri murmured. "Nothing says romance like administrative oversight." This time the older man laughed openly. His wife gave up and reached for her drink. Dae-soo turned his anger toward Zuri. "You appear comfortable for someone whose future depends on this family." "My future depended on me before I entered this room." Park closed the file. "We need privacy now, not to hide what happened, but to read what comes next." Zuri looked at Tae-rin. The guests heard the accusation. They heard the correction. That is enough for now. He signaled toward the guards. The ballroom doors opened, but no phones regained service. "Everyone may leave after security records their names," Tae-rin said. "No photographs, no recordings, no public statements." The wealthy guests moved toward the exits with the disciplined urgency of people who had just been told not to gossip and intended to begin immediately. As they passed Zuri, several avoided her eyes. Money, she discovered, could purchase couture, diamonds, and a remarkable talent for revising memory. Mira remained beside the stage, alone despite the crowd moving around her. Tae-rin removed his jacket and held it toward Zuri. She looked at the black fabric. "Is that in order?" "No." "A strategy?" His gaze dropped to the champagne darkening her uniform. "You are cold." "I was cold when you told me to crawl." His hand tightened around the jacket. The answer hurt him. She saw it and hated the small part of herself that cared. Tae-rin lowered his voice. "Take it because you need it. You can decide what it means later." Zuri took the jacket. It was warm from his body and too large across her shoulders. Cedar surrounded her. The scent felt dangerously close to comfort, so she fastened none of the buttons. Park led them through a side door into the family consultation room. A long table occupied the center with 5 chairs placed around it, as if the room had known exactly how many enemies would enter. Dae-soo took the chair at the head. Tae-rin stopped behind him. "Move." His uncle looked up. "You are behaving like a boy who found a secret door and mistook it for a throne. And you are sitting in my chair." Dae-soo rose slowly. Zuri chose the seat farthest from both men. Park sat beside her and placed the sealed file between them. Mira remained standing, perhaps because sitting would have made her look less like the bride she was still pretending to be. Tae-rin took the head chair. "Read everything," he told Park. Park untied the black ribbon. The covenant was created 22 years ago, after the Kang family received protection from Zuri's guardian. Zuri's fingers pressed into Tae-rin's jacket. "Protection from what?" "A succession attack. Financial records were being used to remove Tae-rin's father from control. Your guardian recovered the original ledgers and kept several family members from being falsely prosecuted. Dae-soo leaned back. She was paid. She refused payment, Park said. She asked for protection for the child in her care. Zuri stared at him. Me? Yes. Mira finally sat down. So an old employee asked for a favor, and now the favor is marriage? Park's expression cooled. She was not an employee. She was the only person in that crisis who did not sell her loyalty. Dae-soo's eyes sharpened. Choose your next sentence carefully. I did. That is why it was accurate. Park turned one page. The covenant tied Zuri's protection to the succession because ordinary promises could be revoked. The named bride could not be removed, disinherited, or surrendered to an enemy without destabilizing the family's legal control. Zuri's stomach tightened. I was made into a lock. A living safeguard, Park corrected. A lock with a pulse is still a lock. Tae-rin's eyes stayed on her. Park continued. The contract was never meant to force affection. It created a protected position and delayed the final choice until both named parties were adults. Mira looked at Tae-rin. Named parties? Park placed one finger beneath the next line. Kang Tae-rin and Zuri Nelo. The words should not have shocked Zuri after the ballroom announcement. They did. Hearing their names together in a quiet room felt more intimate than hearing the word bride before hundreds of guests. The contract seemed to reach across the table and close its hand around both of them. Tae-rin looked away first. Zuri caught it. Why are you not surprised? Dae-soo's attention shifted to his nephew. Mira stopped breathing, and the whole room seemed to notice immediately. Tae-rin's face became unreadable. I am surprised it is you. That was not my question. Park closed his mouth and watched him. Zuri stood. The jacket slipped from one shoulder, and Tae-rin's eyes followed the movement before returning to her face. You recognized the ring, she said. You knew where the mark came from. You knew this contract had two named people before Park read the line. Tae-rin did not deny it. The cold inside Zuri changed shape. How long? He rested both hands on the table. Since I was 17. Mira stared at him. You knew you were promised to someone else? I knew a covenant existed. I was told the girl named in it died before she reached adulthood. Zuri felt the room tilt. Park's voice cut through the pressure. Who told you that? Tae-rin looked at Dae-soo. His uncle did not move. There was a death record, Tae-rin said. A clinic fire. No surviving family, no verified photograph. Zuri's guardian had moved them often when she was young. New apartments, new schools, new surnames on utility forms. Zuri had thought poverty made people disappear that way. Maybe fear had. Dae-soo folded his hands. The record was official. So was the footage from 9/17, Zuri replied. His eyes hardened. Tae-rin continued. 3 years ago, someone tried to sell me a copy of the covenant. It was incomplete. I began searching for the ring. Zuri looked at the engagement decorations visible through the glass doors. Understanding arrived slowly, then all at once. This party. Tae-rin said nothing. Mira turned toward him. What about it? Zuri answered for him. It was bait. Tae-rin's jaw tightened. He had announced an engagement large enough to attract every enemy, every claimant, and every person holding an old family secret. Park had been forced to surface. The ring had surfaced. Zuri had surfaced. Mira pushed back from the table. You used our engagement as a trap? Our engagement was an agreement, Tae-rin said. Her face changed as the truth found the weakest place. Whatever Mira had known about Dae-soo's plan, she had not known this. Zuri almost pitied her. Almost. She turned to Tae-rin. When you saw me in that ballroom, you thought I was only a maid. Yes. When the ring appeared, you thought I might be part of the trap. Yes. And when the footage accused me, you considered that I had come to deceive you? His silence answered. The jacket around her shoulders suddenly felt like another tactic. Zuri pulled it off and placed it on the table with careful hands. Tae-rin rose. Zuri. No. I did not know who you were. You knew enough to turn the entire evening into a net. I was trying to find the person manipulating the covenant, and you caught me on my knees. His face tightened as if she had struck him. Dae-soo watched them with quiet satisfaction. The damage between them was useful to him. Zuri saw that too late. Park stood beside her. The Covenant hearing begins before dawn. Until then, Zuri must remain under independent protection. I will protect her, Taerin said. Zuri looked at him across the table. Minutes earlier, his jacket had been warm. Now, every promise from him sounded like a locked door. You do not get to call yourself my protection while I am still learning whether you were part of the danger. Taerin came around the table but stopped when she lifted one hand. That restraint mattered. It did not repair anything. She picked up the ring and closed it inside her palm. You did not humiliate a stranger, she said. You humiliated the woman you were hunting. Taerin's face changed, not dramatically, not enough for anyone who did not know him to notice. But Zuri saw the exact instant her words found the wound he had been hiding. Dae-Soo saw it too. His uncle leaned back in the chair with the satisfaction of a man watching two doors lock at once. Park gathered the loose pages into a clean stack. We do not have time to let this become personal. Zuri looked at him. It became personal when I was placed inside a contract before I was old enough to speak. It became personal long before that, Dae-Soo replied. Your guardian understood what survival costs. Zuri turned toward him. She understood what your family owed. She understood that protection is never free. Taerin's voice dropped. Stop speaking about her guardian as if she is not in the room. Dae-Soo smiled. Which one of us are you protecting now? The woman, the contract, or your pride? Taerin took one step toward him. Zuri lifted a hand without thinking. He stopped. The fact that he obeyed her made the room feel suddenly smaller. Park opened a second section of the file. Zuri cannot remain in the hotel. The false footage proves someone had access to staff uniforms, private cameras, and the bridal suite. Whoever arranged that may attempt something more direct before the hearing. Mira's head snapped up. Are you accusing me of violence now? No, Park said. I am accusing this evening of becoming more ambitious by the minute. Zuri pressed the ring into her palm until its edges hurt. What does independent protection mean? A location not controlled by Dae-Soo's staff, Mira's family, or the hotel. Taerin answered before Park could finish. My residence. Zuri laughed once. It came out sharper than she intended. Of course. His eyes narrowed. What is that supposed to mean? It means the man who built the trap has kindly offered me a room inside it. You would have your own security team. Chosen by you. Approved by Park. Paid by you. Taerin's patience thinned. Would you prefer to walk into the street alone while someone is manufacturing evidence against you? I would prefer not to be told that every road leads through your front door. Mira looked between them, her expression tightening with every word. Jealousy had entered the room quietly, but it was no longer pretending to be polite. This is ridiculous, she said. She arrives wearing a servant's uniform, and within an hour she has Taerin offering her his home. Zuri faced her. I assure you, I am as disappointed as you are. Park lowered his gaze to hide the beginning of a smile. Mira's voice sharpened. You think this is funny? No, I think your timing is. Dae-Soo pushed back his chair. Enough. Taerin takes Zuri to the penthouse. Park comes with them. Mira stays here. Mira stared at him. I stay? You wanted to be involved. I am his fiancée. No, Park said. At present, you are a disputed announcement. The insult landed with surgical neatness. Mira rose so quickly that her chair scraped the floor. Taerin did not look at her. That hurt her more than Park's words. She turned toward Zuri. Do you honestly believe he wants you? Zuri felt Taerin go still. Mira continued. He wants control of the contract. He wants the succession protected. He wants the embarrassment contained. You are not a bride to him. You are a problem wearing his jacket. Zuri looked down. The jacket was no longer around her shoulders, but the warmth remained in her skin, as if her body had remembered it without permission. Taerin's voice became dangerously calm. Leave. Mira's eyes brightened. You cannot dismiss me because she walked in with an old ring. I am dismissing you because you have spent the last hour accusing an innocent woman while standing beside planted evidence. You do not know I planted anything. No, but I know you looked at Dae-Soo when the bracelet appeared. Dae-Soo gave his nephew a disappointed look. Instinct is not evidence. Taerin looked at the false footage still glowing on the tablet. Tonight, Instinct is doing better than your evidence. Mira's composure cracked. She reached for the edge of the table as though the room had moved beneath her. Zuri watched the woman who had enjoyed her shame begin to lose her own standing. The feeling was not pleasure. It was recognition. Public humiliation did not become justice simply because the victim changed. Zuri spoke before anger could stop her. Do not throw her into the same room you put me in. Everyone turned. Mira stared at her. Taerin frowned. She accused you of theft, and you believed her. His jaw tightened. Zuri continued. Investigate her, challenge her, remove her from the hearing if the contract requires it, but do not turn a room full of people into a weapon and call it truth. Mira's expression shifted for the first time. The hatred remained. Something else appeared beneath it. Shame. Daesoon noticed and disliked it immediately. Compassion is an expensive habit, he told Zuri. So is arrogance. Your family seems able to afford both. Park cleared his throat into one fist. Taerin looked at Zuri with an expression she could not read. It held admiration, frustration, and something far more dangerous than either. Want. Not the easy hunger of a man seeing a beautiful woman. This was the look of someone realizing that the person in front of him could become the one voice he could not command. Zuri's pulse knocked hard against her throat. She hated that her body understood him before her mind gave permission. Park closed the file. We move now. The corridor outside the consultation room was empty. Too empty. The hotel staff had been cleared from the private floor. The carpet swallowed their footsteps as Taerin led the way, Zuri behind him, Park beside her, and 2 guards following at a respectful distance. Daesoo remained in the ballroom with Mira. That worried Zuri more than if they had followed. At the elevator, Taerin pressed the private key. The doors opened. Zuri stepped inside and immediately saw herself reflected in 3 walls of dark glass. Champagne stained her uniform. A small cut marked one knee. Her broken chain hung loose around her neck, and the old ring sat clenched inside her hand. She looked exactly like a woman leaving a party she had never been invited to attend. Taerin entered last. The guards stayed outside. Park raised one eyebrow. Independent protection. They will follow in the next elevator, Taerin said. The doors closed. The 3 of them descended in a box full of polished reflections. Zuri felt Taerin's gaze touch the cut on her knee. It needs cleaning. She looked straight ahead. The floor survived. I was talking about you. I know. Park studied the ceiling with the devotion of a man who had suddenly developed a professional interest in elevator lighting. Taerin removed a clean handkerchief from his pocket and held it toward Zuri. She did not take it. He waited. The elevator continued downward. Finally, Zuri accepted the cloth and pressed it against the small cut. Thank you. The word seemed to surprise him. You are welcome. For one brief second, the anger between them loosened. Then the elevator stopped. The doors opened onto the hotel's underground garage. No vehicle waited at the private entrance. Taerin's expression hardened. Park looked toward the empty space. Was the driver changed? No. A phone vibrated inside Taerin's pocket. He checked the screen. Zuri watched the blood leave his face. What is it? He turned the phone toward Park, not her. Park read the message. Your driver was found unconscious in a service room. Alive. Zuri's grip tightened around the handkerchief. Taerin stepped in front of her. The movement was immediate and instinctive. For the first time that night, he did not look like a man deciding whether she was useful. He looked afraid. Not for himself. For her. A black car moved slowly around the far concrete pillar. Taerin's guards entered the garage behind them. The car stopped.
Its rear door opened. No one stepped out.
A small black box rested on the seat. Park's face tightened. Do not touch it. One guard approached carefully, checked the vehicle, then removed the box and carried it to the hood of another car. Inside was a single white flower. Under it sat a photograph of Zuri leaving the staff entrance 2 days earlier. Someone had been watching her before the engagement party. Taerin looked at the photograph, then at Zuri. You were followed. She stared at the image. Her guardian had taught her to change routes, avoid patterns, and never stand too long beneath the same streetlight. Zuri had thought those rules belonged to an old woman's fear. Now, fear reached out from the photograph and placed its hand around her throat. Park turned the picture over. A symbol had been drawn on the back, the same tiny mark beneath the ring's crest. Taerin went rigid. Zuri saw it. You know that mark. He did not answer. Tyrin? It belonged to my grandfather's private succession circle. Park looked at him. That circle was dissolved after his death. No, Tyrin said. It disappeared. The difference settled over them. Zuri studied the photograph again. So the person who followed me is connected to the people who created the contract. Or to someone who wants us to believe that. Park looked toward the empty garage entrance. We cannot stay here. Tyrin gave instructions to the guards, brief and controlled. Another vehicle was brought from a secured level, checked, and positioned beside them. Zuri walked toward it. Tyrin caught her wrist. His grip was firm but not painful. She looked down at his hand. He released her immediately. Do not enter yet. Why? Because I need to know whether you are still choosing to come with me. The question stunned her. He could have ordered the guards to place her in the car. He could have wrapped necessity around control and called it protection. Instead, he waited. Zuri looked at the dark garage, the photograph, and the ring in her palm. Then she looked at him. I am choosing the safest option available to me. His expression hardened at the careful wording. That is not the same as trusting you. I know. She entered the car. Park took the front passenger seat, leaving Zuri and Tyrin on opposite sides of the rear bench. The distance between them was less than 3 feet. It felt like an entire country. The vehicle moved through the private exit and into the wet Seoul night. City lights dragged across the windows in gold and red lines. Zuri watched them to avoid watching Tyrin. He broke the silence first. My grandfather showed me the ring when I was 17. She kept her eyes on the glass. He told me it belonged to someone our family failed. Did he tell you her name? No. Did you ask? Yes. And? He told me I would recognize the truth when the ring returned. Zuri finally looked at him. That sounds dramatic. He enjoyed being obeyed too much to waste time being clear. A reluctant smile touched her mouth. Tyrin saw it. The tension between them shifted, not disappearing, only changing temperature. Then Park's phone rang. He answered, listened, and turned in his seat. The hearing location has been compromised. Tyrin's expression sharpened. How? Someone sent the council a copy of the incomplete covenant. Zuri frowned. What does the incomplete version say? Park looked at her. It says the bride must marry Tyrin before sunrise or forfeit every protection named in the contract. The car seemed to lose warmth. Zuri stared at Tyrin. And the complete version? Park's answer came slowly. The complete version contains an additional clause. What clause? He looked down at the sealed file resting across his knees. The bride chooses whether the groom is worthy of the succession. Tyrin stopped breathing. Zuri looked at the ring inside her hand. For the first time, it did not feel like a chain. It felt like a verdict. The car continued through the rain while nobody spoke. Zuri watched Tyrin absorb the meaning of Park's words. The bride chooses whether the groom is worthy of the succession. For a man raised to believe power arrived through blood, obedience, and fear, the sentence should have sounded like an insult. Instead, he looked at Zuri as though someone had finally placed the correct weapon in her hand. What does she have to do? He asked. Park kept the file closed. Appear before the surviving council members, confirm her identity, hear the claims against the covenant, then choose. Choose what? Zuri asked. Whether the protected alliance continues through Tyrin, transfers its authority elsewhere, or remains with you alone. Tyrin's eyes sharpened. Elsewhere? The contract names no replacement groom. Then why mention transfer? Because succession authority can be separated from marriage. The words changed everything. Zuri had spent the night believing the contract's power existed only because some dead men had promised her to Tyrin. Now Park was telling her the marriage was only one possible path. The real inheritance was choice. Tyrin leaned back against the seat. For the first time since she had met him, he looked like a man with nothing to command. Zuri studied him. If I decide you are unworthy, what happens? Park answered carefully. The private accounts tied to the covenant leave Tyrin's control. Several council votes become invalid. His uncle gains temporary authority until a new succession challenge is resolved. Dae-soo. The name did not need to be spoken. Tyrin's mouth hardened. That is what he wants. No, Park replied. He wants Zuri discredited before she can choose. If she rejects you under scandal, he can claim the covenant failed. If she vanishes, the incomplete version makes it appear that she forfeited her rights. Zuri looked again at the photograph of herself leaving the staff entrance. The missing bracelet had not been intended to remove her from the party. It had been intended to make the whole world believe she was a criminal before anyone learned she had power. Mira's cruelty had been useful. Tae-rin's pride had been useful. Even Zuri's uniform had been useful. Dae-soo had understood that people rarely questioned humiliation when the victim wore the clothing they expected. The car turned into a private underground entrance beneath Tae-rin's residence. Security lights swept across the windows. Park's phone rang again. This time, he did not answer immediately. He looked at the screen, then at Tae-rin. The council has moved the hearing back to the hotel. Tae-rin frowned. Why? Dae-soo called an emergency vote. Zuri's stomach tightened. Without me? With a woman claiming to be you. The car stopped. For 1 second, the only sound was rain striking the concrete ramp above them. Then Tae-rin opened the door. We go back. Park caught his arm. That may be exactly what he wants. It is. Tae-rin looked at Zuri. But if we stay away, he wins without needing another move. Zuri stepped out of the car. The cold air wrapped around her wet uniform. Tae-rin removed his jacket again. She looked at it. He raised one eyebrow. Still not in order. This time, she took it without arguing. Do not make me regret accepting it twice. I already regret the first time you needed it. The answer stopped her. He did not ask forgiveness. He did not turn regret into a performance. He simply carried the truth and let it remain ugly. Zuri put on the jacket. They returned to the car. By the time they reached the hotel, the rain had become a silver wall across the entrance. The ballroom doors stood open. Inside, the engagement decorations remained untouched, but the celebration was gone. 12 council members sat along the banquet tables. Security lined the walls. Mira stood beside Dae-soo wearing a fresh ivory dress, her wet gown replaced so quickly that the change felt like an attempt to erase the last hour. Beside Park's abandoned chair stood another woman in a black service uniform. Her face was partly hidden beneath a service cap. The same woman from the false footage. A veil of black netting covered her features. Dae-soo looked toward the entrance. You are late. Zuri walked into the ballroom with Tae-rin's jacket over her stained uniform and the old ring in her hand. No, she replied. I arrived before you made the mistake permanent. Park glanced at her. It was his own line from earlier. This time, the callback belonged to her. The older man with the fork had somehow returned. He lowered it again with solemn respect for tradition. Dae-soo gestured toward the veiled woman. The council has received testimony that this is Zuri Nalo. Zuri looked at the stranger. Then she has had a difficult evening. The woman did not speak. Park approached the council table. Remove the veil. Dae-soo's smile remained calm. Identity is established by documentation. Then you should have chosen documents with matching dates. Mira moved first. She grabbed the false woman's wrist. The sleeve shifted. The old ring from the footage was not there. Instead, a pale mark circled the finger where a replica had been worn. Tae-rin saw it. So you did know who appeared on the camera. Mira released the wrist. I was told she was part of your trap. By whom? Her eyes flicked toward Dae-soo. This time, she did not look away quickly enough. The room understood. Dae-soo's patience finally cracked. Do not confuse a frightened woman with a reliable witness. Mira turned on him. You told me the contract was fake. I told you it was irrelevant. You told me Zuri would be removed before Park arrived. The words landed like a door slamming shut. Dae-soo stared at her. Mira's voice shook, but she continued. You said the bracelet would make Tae-rin dismiss her. You said the footage would destroy her credibility. You never said she had authority over the succession. Zuri felt no satisfaction. Mira had helped humiliate her. She had also been used by a man who treated people like pieces on a board. Park faced the council. You have heard an admission that evidence was planted. Dae-soo raised his cane. You have heard panic from a rejected bride. I was never the bride, Mira said. The sentence cost her almost everything she'd been trying to protect. For the first time that night, she looked honest. Dae-soo's guards moved from the wall. Tae-rin stepped in front of Zuri. The council members rose in alarm. No weapon was raised, but the meaning of the movement was clear. Dae-soo wanted control of the doors. Tae-rin's own guards entered from the corridor and formed a barrier between the tables and the exit. The ballroom became still enough to hear the rain against the high windows. Tae-rin looked at his uncle. Call them back. You would divide the family over her? No. He glanced at Zuri. I divided it when I believed a lie because it was convenient. Then he faced the council. When Zuri entered this room, I saw a servant and treated her word as less valuable than Mira's accusation. I ordered her to clean a humiliation she did not create. I allowed my power to become evidence against her. No one moved. Tayrin's voice remained controlled, but the control no longer hit him. I was wrong. Zuri felt the sentence strike the same place his first command had wounded. Clean it. Now the man who had ordered her onto her knees was standing before the same room and placing the blame where it belonged, on himself. He continued. I knew a hidden bride existed. I used this engagement to force the covenant into the open. I did not know Zuri was alive, but that does not excuse what I did when she stood in front of me. Desu's expression turned cold. Confession is not leadership. No, Zuri said, but neither is hiding behind flowers. The older man placed his fork down before anyone could take it from him. Park did not read the council's reaction aloud. He did not need to. One member removed his glasses and cleaned lenses that were already spotless. Another stared at Desu with the betrayed concentration of a man recalculating every favor he had ever accepted. The oldest councilwoman folded her hands over the table. Was the third choice concealed from us? Desu's answer came too slowly. It was considered unstable. She looked at the guards near the doors. How fortunate that instability arrived with witnesses. A murmur moved through the tables. Zuri watched authority detach itself from Desu, one careful face at a time. He had built his control on the belief that everyone feared uncertainty more than they feared him. The complete contract gave them a different fear. Accountability. Mira stepped away from Desu until an empty chair separated them. It was a small distance, but it looked like the first honest decision she had made all night. Tayrin noticed. Will you testify? Mira swallowed. Yes, even if it destroys what remains of my name in this room. Zuri had imagined justice as a clean feeling, bright enough to erase what came before. Standing beneath the chandeliers, she discovered it was heavier. Mira's testimony could expose Desu, but it could not return Zuri's dignity untouched. Tayrin's confession could change the room, but it could not make his first command disappear. Even victory carried fingerprints from the people who had tried to control her. She looked at the council members and understood that their respect was conditional. They were waiting to learn how much power she held. None of them had asked how much pain it had cost her to reach the table. Park opened the final sealed page. The council must now hear the authority clause. Desu's guards remained near the doors. Tayrin's guards held their line. No one advanced. Park read from the document. The bearer of the marked ring is not property of the Kang succession. The bearer is creditor to it. Zuri's fingers tightened around the gold band. Park continued. The Kang family received protection, records, and survival from the guardian of Zuri Nalo. The ring acknowledges an unpaid debt. It does not signify that Zuri belongs to Tayrin. It signifies that the Kang succession remains answerable to her. The meaning of every glance, every accusation, and every frightened reaction shifted at once. Desu had not feared a bride entering the family. He had feared a creditor returning. Park turned the page toward Zuri. The final choice is yours. Mira looked at Tayrin. Tayrin looked only at Zuri. Desu stepped forward. Choose him, and you place yourself inside a violent family that already used you. Reject him, and the accounts transfer into dispute. The council fractures. People who had nothing to do with this lose their protection. Zuri faced him. That is not a choice. That is a threat wearing legal language. It is reality. No, it is your favorite version of it. Park placed the contract on the center table. 3 spaces had been marked beneath the final clause. Continue the alliance through Tayrin. Reject Tayrin and trigger succession review. Retain the authority without maiming any groom. Zuri stared at the 3rd space. Desu's face changed. There it was, the last truth. He had not merely hidden the complete contract from Tayrin. He had hidden the one clause that made marriage unnecessary. Tayrin saw the realization in Zuri's eyes. You knew, he told his uncle. Desu said nothing. Park's voice hardened. The incomplete copy sent to the council removed the 3rd choice. Mira whispered, because he needed her to believe she had to marry. Zuri looked at Desu. You did not want me dead. His expression remained calm, but his hand tightened around the cane.
You wanted me frightened enough to choose the cage you prepared. The ballroom doors opened behind the guards. More men stood in the corridor. No one moved toward Zuri. They did not need to. The pressure filled the doorway.
Tae-rin stepped between Zuri and his uncle. He did not touch her. He did not tell her what to choose. His voice dropped low enough that only she could hear. If you reject me, I will still get you out of this room. Zuri searched his face. What happens to you? That is not your responsibility. It was the first truly unselfish thing he had offered her. Not protection in exchange for trust. Not safety in exchange for marriage. A way out, even if her choice destroyed him. Zuri looked down at the ring. The black stone caught the ballroom light. Earlier, it had exposed her. Then, it had condemned her. Then, it had made her valuable. Now, it told the truth. She belonged to no one. Zuri closed her fingers around it and faced Park. What happens if the bride chooses no groom at all? Every person in the ballroom seemed to lean toward the answer. Park looked at the third space on the contract. Then he looked at Dae-soo. The bride becomes the succession authority. Tae-rin's uncle went pale. The men at the doors shifted. Tae-rin moved closer to Zuri, still without touching her. And Zuri understood that accepting the ring would not make her his wife. It would make every man in that room answer to her. Drop your comment and part 2 if you want to see what Zuri does with the ring.